So environmental damage and the kind of psychic damage, and now, as we get to the end of this kind of fast money era, a kind of deeply dangerous, even on its own terms, vulnerability, a brittleness to this system as it begins to break apart. The most important phrase, the phrase that sticks in my mind and in my craw really from the last couple of years, is that phrase, too big to fail, which meant in political terms you have to bail us out, you know. That was its sort of meaning on the op-ed pages and TV screens and things. But the real and obvious meaning of it is that it's too big. Anything too big to fail is by definition too big. And if you think that the financial system is the only thing in that category, well, of course, think again. Every system in our world now has been oversized and grown out of control. All the arrangements of modern life share that same vulnerability. Our food system and our energy system are at least as top-heavy, interconnected, and primed for failure as our banking system was, and the results of those things will be even more startling because we're even more dependent on food than we are on money when you get right down to it. And I'm even more dependent on water. If somebody had a glass of it, I'd be grateful for it. Sorry. Great. Thank you very much. So, I can tell this is
Don't drink the tap water.
Local water?
Definitely local water. So the good news, and it really is good news, and it's thanks to many of the people in this tent, is that we can now see the beginning of the reaction to that. We can see in more than just embryo where it is we're headed next, and that's profoundly good news. Shelburne Farms, since we're here, is a place to talk about food, and that's really the place we saw this recovery, this reaction beginning first. Shelburne Farms, which I hope you'll take a little time to explore, is one of the most remarkable places in the country, and the people who run it, Alex Webb and Megan Camp and others, are among the great leaders of this movement. People who've done amazing work to help spread the gospel of local food, not just in the obvious places, but through the schools in Vermont and as many other places as they can. That's going on all over the country now. 10 years ago, I taught a little course at Middlebury on local food production. I think at the time it was the first course like that that had ever been taught in the country. Now there are hundreds. Now Michael Pollan and Barbara Kingsolver and all sorts of other people have done great literary work. Now tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of farmers have done the real work of building that food system. As a result, farmers markets have been the fastest growing part of our food economy for almost a decade. And as a result of that, the USDA does an agricultural census every 5 years. And the one released last year showed that for the first time in a century and a half, the number of farms in America isn't decreasing anymore. In fact, it's growing, and growing quickly. All of that growth is coming at the bottom end, you know. It's small farms growing food that people want to eat, not food to toss into the industrial commodity food stream, but food for people. And that's remarkably good, not only for its environmental result, but also for its ability to repair that kind of social deficit that I was describing before, that kind of psychic damage. A few years ago, a pair of sociologists followed shoppers, first around the supermarket, and then around the farmer's market. Now, you all been to the supermarkets, you know how it works. You walk in, you fall into a light fluorescent trance, you visit the stations of the cross around the supermarket. You emerge somehow with the same, almost magically, the same basket of items you had the week before. Maybe you discuss credit or debit at the counter, and that's it. When they followed people around the farmer's market, they found that on average they were having 10 times more conversations per visit. Okay, not 10% more, 10 times more. It was a different social construct. And I think that that interchange of connection and community is almost as attractive as all the other things that bring people to the farmer's market. The sense that the food is better, and of course it is better. I mean, I traveled 2,000 miles this week. I know how I feel. That's how the tomato feels also, you know. But important as that is, that interchange is in fact, I know it's true, because there are weeks when I have to not go to the farmer's market because I know that I just don't have time for the conversations that will happen there. It's the perfect example of how, as we begin to bind up some of the ecological wounds that we have inflicted upon ourselves, at the same time we start to bind up some of the psychic ones too. And very, very hopeful. The same kind of hopeful stuff's beginning to happen everywhere else, in every other commodity that we depend on. Energy. Look, the future of energy is very different than the past. We need, in essence, a farmer's market in electrons. We need what the engineers are now calling distributed generation. I have solar panels up on my roof in Vermont. Some days they hum right along, you know. When they do, I'm a little utility, firing electrons down the grid. My neighbors are, you know, cooling their beer before the Red Sox game with the sunlight that falls on my shingles, and that's good. It's good in all manner of ways. It's good because we can put ecologically benign technologies to work. It's good because it overcomes some of our modern fears. You know, theoretically, a terrorist could take an interest in my solar panels and put a ladder against the wall and climb up on the roof and go after them with a hammer. But if he did, it wouldn't spew deadly solar particles off into the atmosphere, and more to the point, it wouldn't ramify down the grid. It would be a problem for me, but not a disaster, okay? And one of the things we're going to need to do in the world that we're now entering is try to keep problems and keep them from becoming disasters. That's going to be part of our job. And it's one of the reasons why this sort of localized and decentralized future is so important.